Welcome to Mapping Out Adventure on the Erie Trail. My name is Tom Beltz, and I lead the marketing team for the Erie Trail as a board member of the trail. Adventure, what brought you to the Adventure Summit? What does adventure mean to you? For those listening to this recorded presentation, the responses were similar. They were things that are out of the norm, things that stretched my limits, and things that are interesting and something to discover. Microadventure is a term that's been coined by a British adventurer, Alistair Humphrey. He defines a microadventure as a short, simple, local, cheap, and yet still fun, exciting, challenging, refreshing, and rewarding. For several years, I have been a bicycle tourist, touring both Europe and the United States. Many of my adventures were week-long. A few years ago, I discovered Alistair Humphrey. He had returned from around the world bicycle tours to England, and he thought, are there adventures to be had locally? He began to dig into the subject and found that yes, there are adventures close to home, 2 or 3 days, maybe even an overnight that everybody could experience. These are the adventures that I have discovered in the last years on the Erie Trail from my home in Mount Vernon, Ohio. I have traveled for a day, several days, and even a week to explore micro adventures in the state of Ohio. What is the Erie Trail? Let's look at the numbers. There are 326 miles of trail that span from the Ohio River in Cincinnati through Columbus and end on the shores of Lake Erie in Cleveland. This trail is really made up of 23 regional trails that have been stitched together to form that continuous ribbon diagonally across the state of Ohio. As of this year, 282 miles are on dedicated trails, mainly paved trails, but some limestone trails. 44 miles of the trail are on streets in urban settings and on country roads. There are about 27 unique small towns and villages that you will pass through on this trail. What makes this trail unique beyond those small towns and villages are that you pass through Ohio's 3 Cs, the biggest cities in Ohio: Cincinnati on the Ohio River, Columbus in the center of the state, and Cleveland on Lake Erie shore. 1999 was the year that Ed Taunton, a Franklin County engineer, had the insight to look at a map of Ohio, abandoned railroads, and burgeoning rail trails to see that this path diagonally across the state of Ohio could become a reality. 30 years later, we are all rewarded with his work. Today's talk is going to be about how to plan and navigate the trail. You can choose the type of adventure. I spoke about micro adventures. That adventure could be for a day, a weekend, an extended weekend, several days, or you could easily enjoy a week-long adventure crossing the state. You can go end to end in one continuous trip, or break the trail into segments, enjoying a weekend here and there, and maybe out and back rides. Today I'm going to talk about how you go about navigating this trail. We're going to look first at the Erie Trail Guide, a publication by the Erie Trail. The Erie Trail has developed an interactive map which sits on Google Maps and can be found on our website. For those who use Garmin and other devices and apps that map and track and guide you on your bike, we have created Ride with GPS files that will run on those apps and devices. And finally, I'll end the presentation about talking about other resources that the trail partners and individuals offer. Let's start with the Ohio to Erie Trail Guide. This trail guide is a 4-map set that comes in a plastic sleeve. You can either buy this map set guiding you northbound or southbound. It's divided into 4 regions: the southern region, south central, north central, and northern region. All 4 come in this set. Each of these maps includes a 6-panel fold out that make it easy to use. These maps fold and actually fit in many map holders or on top of handlebar bags. Each map is introduced with a legend and mileage grid, a wide assortment of service symbols that I'll describe in the upcoming slides help guide you in planning and finding your way across Ohio. In addition, each panel has detailed navigation information, which gives you turn-by-turns and often important things that you need to know to keep you on the right track. I want to note that this is not a traditional map that is to scale. Since this is trail, there are large sections where there are no turns. Instead, these map panels concentrate on trail connections, many of the street segments of the trail, and turn-by-turns when you must make critical turns. This map set is available on the Ohio to Erie Trail website, and it is available at several bicycle shop partners across the state. Let's start here on the first panel of a map set. What you see in front of you here on the left is a mileage grid and a guideline on how you use this map set. One thing I want to highlight is a QR code in the bottom left corner. You can scan this code on your mobile device and it will bring up the Plan Your Trip web page on the Ohio to Erie website that offers invaluable touring resources. On the right side of the panel is a legend of what you will find on the map. On the top, you will see designations for trails, alternate, and a lot of geographical things like rivers, crossroads, and so forth. On the bottom, right-hand side, you will find the symbols on the map set. Both of these items I'll cover in detail on the following slide. Let's look at the legend and symbols. You will see the green bar on the top left with a black line through it. That is the primary path of the Ohio to Erie Trail. Below it, you will see an orange line with a black line through it. That is an alternate route of the trail. To the right of those, you will see white bars bordered with green or orange that designate on-road sections of the Ohio to Erie Trail. This map includes some nice tools for reference. You will see roads and streets, rivers and urban areas, as well as connecting bike trails. Those are handy reference marks as you use the trail. Below these map legends, you will find service symbols. Just about any convenience on the trail is marked by these symbols. As you will see, the standard symbols for restrooms, parking, water, gas stations, food and beverage. But what I want to highlight here, you will see on the top row on the far right, a TH. What that designates is trailhead. The symbols to the left of that trailhead, restrooms, parking, and water, that are in a shaded box, are represented with the TH symbol. The same applies for the FS symbol, which stands for full service, which shows grocery, gas, food and beverage, and lodging. Both of these groupings have been made to make the map less cluttered. In other words, at a trailhead that provides full service, you will see two icons, the TH and the FS. So let's go ahead and look at the maps. I have zoomed in on a section of our southern region. This is a map from Miamiville when you are just leaving Cincinnati, and it goes to Kings Mills. The first thing you should note are the red triangles. The first red triangle is on the bottom of the map, right along the Little Miami River where it crosses the Erie Trail. The next one is at the center of Loveland, sort of in the middle of this map. Along that section of the trail between those two marks is a 6 that designates 6 miles. This is what you will use as you cross the trail and you're interested in knowing what are the distance between certain points. They are pretty much trailhead to trailhead or some recognizable point of reference. At the same time, you'll notice that Miamiville, Loveland, and Kings Mills are shaded, and that designates urban areas. In other words, it designates a small village, town, or a city. It's nice to know that when you're bicycle touring, when you're approaching those. I've now moved on to a trail panel. I actually have two here that I think are good references. On the top panel, you will notice that it is designated with a NB 111.5 miles. So this is a northbound map. And it says when you're heading north, the top of this map is 111.5 miles from the start. If you will notice on the bottom left corner of the top panel, there is an SB 228 miles. So if you're using this northbound map, but you are heading south, then you have already passed 228 miles of the trail when you reach the end of this panel. So this map again was a good example of trail connections with a small amount of road. As you will see on the far left of that top panel, the white Ohio to Erie designation with green borders, meaning that in London, Ohio, you use city streets. The bottom map is another good example. The north and southbound mileage applies as it does on the above map. So again, this is a northbound map, and the direction of this map is oriented left to right, heading north. This is a good example of a mixed trail. In other words, what I'm talking about here, starting on the left side, you will see that continuous green Ohio to Erie Trail with the black line, which then when it gets to Fredericksburg, turns into a white trail designation, which means that you are now transitioning from trail to road. This section here from Fredericksburg to Apple Creek is part of the primary on-road sections of this trail. What is important on these map panels is on the right-hand side is text directions, often turn by turn, or noting areas of concern or where you should pay special attention. So people may ask, can I use a northbound map when I'm traveling southbound? The answer is certainly you can. However, the directions on the right-hand side of the panel here says NB, which reads northbound. In other words, if you're heading north, you can use these. If you're heading south, your directions would be reversed and probably somewhat more difficult to read. Let's take a look at the interactive map. The interactive map is a Google map, and it is located on the Ohio to Erie Trail website. It is Google Maps, so once you bring up that map, you can access it through Google Maps also. This works just like Google Maps on any device. The top right square icon will make it full screen. The top left icon will turn on and off map layers. I believe some people will not be familiar with map layers, and I will cover map layers in detail in this presentation. There is a share icon on the top right also where you can share the map. You can zoom in and out as on any Google Maps with a plus or minus in the lower left-hand corner. And if you're a person who likes to use two fingers, you can navigate around the map. Where do you find this map? This map is located on the Maps page of the Ohio to Erie Trail website. I have a picture right here. So you would click on Maps on the top menu bar. It will bring up the map screen, and there's a good bit of information there. But you will see there at the very top is interactive map, and I have placed a red arrow next to it, which says jump to the interactive map. So that will jump down the page to the interactive map. So here we are on the interactive map as it is displayed on the Ohio to Erie website. Again, you can use that top right-hand icon to enlarge it to full screen. And the important thing here is the use of map layers, and that is the left top icon, and we're going to cover that next. So here's a good example of the top left icon clicked, exposing map layers. There are many map layers to this, but what you are able to do is turn on or off trailheads. And that is a nice option if you're zoomed in and you're traveling this map and you're trying to find a trailhead to where you want to start or end. It is Google Maps, so if you happen to be lost, you can navigate to that trail. At the same time, if you want to zoom in on a map and don't want to go from the full map and zoom in. You also have a map layer here where you could choose a particular section of the map. There are many layers here. There's some layers for friends of the trail, in other words, businesses along the trail. There's how do I find the start and the end of the trail. I believe there's even an ice cream shop layer. So this would be something that you may want to experiment with, these turning on and off these layers and see what you get. So right here, what I have done here, I have turned on the trailheads, and at the same time, I have clicked on Peninsula to Akron. So right now we're looking, the result that gets returned from Peninsula to Akron, which is in Northeast Ohio, north of Akron. And you will see the trailheads, and the trailheads have the Ohio 1 green oval. So we'll go to the next slide. So in the next slide, I have clicked on the Ohio 1 oval, which is on the bottom right of the map. It's the Ohio 1 has been enlarged, so you cannot read the word Botsam. And the individual, I call him the map meister of the Ohio to Erie Trail, has photographed every single trailhead on this trail. As a matter of fact, he rides this trail twice a year, maintains this map, keeps it current by working with the various trail organizations. And he's captured this cool little picture. So if you're curious if it's your right place, that's the Botsam Trailhead picture there. What can you do now? So now you'll notice that the Google Maps little arrow that kind of goes to the right, it would be on the right of the Botsam Trailhead heading in the middle of the screen. If you click on that, it will bring up directions. So you can find your way to the Botsam Trailhead from wherever you're at. So this is a very nice feature. You can use this interactive map as you're along the way to see where you are on the trail and use it to navigate. At this time, I'd like to give you some time to navigate and play with this interactive map. We did that in the session, and those who are watching this recorded version, you can do it now and return to this presentation or in the future. It's a very good idea to learn how to use this map. I can tell you it's invaluable when you're passing through the trail. This happens to be our most accessed asset that we have on our website. Ride with GPS. A request that we have had quite a bit is that we would like to see the Ohio to Erie trail routes in a format that we could use on software such as Strava or Ride with GPS. And we provide that service now. We happen to have created Ride with GPS routes for each of the 4 regions of the trail. Again, to access it, you would go to the ohio-to-erie-trail.org/interactive map, which is accessed by Maps being shortened on the top menu bar. Click on that and you'll page down a little bit and you'll see the section that I am displaying on the right side of the screen, which says download links. So for each of those sections, northern, north central, south central, and southern, you can click on that particular URL and you will bring up the Ride with GPS route. Some notes about what you can do. On Ride with GPS, you can export that route in a variety of formats that are supported by GPS devices, such as Garmin devices and apps. You'll have to reference your device or app to find out what type of file they need. You can print a cue sheet, but a good bit of Ride with GPS, more advanced functionality, is based on the type of license you have with Ride with GPS. The above 2 items, which is export the map and print a cue sheet, I believe are for free versions of Ride with GPS. I won't give you a tutorial on Ride with GPS, but I can tell you that if you have more advanced, a paid version of the software, you could change the formatting of the cue sheet and you could add all kind of custom stops along the way or whatever. But for most people, you can take these 4 files and use them on devices or apps. And that's the important takeaway I want to give you here. Here's an example what Ride with GPS displays if you're not a Ride with GPS layer. So you can see this is the northern region. It's telling you what the elevations are, the highest grade, the lowest grade, or whatever. It shows the map and so forth. The green on the bottom little icon along the trail designates where it starts, and the red is where it stops. It's a very nice tool, and I am sure that if you took these export files and brought them into another software such as Strava, you might have similar functionality. Let's take a look at the Erie Trail website and what you can do. There's a lot of stuff on this website. You've already taken a look at their interactive map. That's part of the plan your trip part of web page. Uh, on that plan your trip, you're going to find links to a variety of PDF files, and some are web pages, but some are PDFs. So you can see what city streets and urban roads. There's amenity and attractions. Obviously, we haven't got them all, but we try to highlight the major ones. We also highlight what lodging and campsites are available. And that, of course, is ever changing as Airbnbs open up along the trail. And just about every little crossroads town now has an Airbnb. Uh, we also have some areas where you can link and look from previous journals and blogs of people who have traveled across the trail. The distance grid is up there. If you're curious, how far is it to go from, say, Xenia, Ohio to Massillon, Ohio? Uh, there's some pages that talk about support for cyclists. A really nice asset is what are some of the long-term parking options that we have found at the trail termini? This is ever changing, and from my personal experience, I have found some recent bike tours have found hotels that are willing to allow a person to park for a week, sometimes free of charge or sometime at a nominal charge. So if you're doing that, it would be a good idea to check with a hotel. Friends Along the Trail is a growing list of businesses along the trail who are willing to be designated a friend. Often these businesses offer some sort of discount. Itineraries and destinations is another page where the trail staff has put together some sample itineraries, like what would a trip on 4 nights across the trail look like, and what would a 7 night trip across the trail work? It's a good place to look if you're planning the trip. And we provide route alerts when available. And I will issue a word of caution here. This is a collection of 23 trails and not a singular trail. That means that up to 23 entities maintain the trail. They do not always let us know when there will be a closure, and often there might just be a closure for 4 hours or 8 hours. We're doing some maintenance, say drainage or something along the trail. Most likely, if it is a long-term closure, we will know it and we will publish it, and it is usually published at the top of the home page under an alert to let people know that there is a major closure. So I highly recommend that you visit the Erie Trail website and familiar yourself with what is on those pages. I decided to include a 7-day itinerary, and this is an itinerary that we see used quite a bit on the trail. The trail uses this for our annual charity ride, and I'll talk about that ride in an upcoming slide. But what's I wanted to highlight on this 7-day itinerary, this itinerary stops at the cities, towns, and villages that have very good amenities. There's generally pretty good dining, entertainment, lodging, shopping using this itinerary. One thing to highlight about this if it's either on your first day, first and second day, or sixth and seventh day, if you reverse this route, uh, between Akron and Cleveland in the Cuyahoga Valley, the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad, which is in the national park, offers a program called Bike Aboard. They also offer this for hikers and kayakers. So if you're not biking the trail, if you're, say, kayaking or hiking this trail, you can use the bike aboard option. And what that is, it's a discounted rate. I believe the normal ticket is somewhere between $15 and $20, but for $5, you can get on the train and you can go as far as 28 miles on that train, or there are 4 stops in between. And about halfway in between is the town of Peninsula. And a lot of people will maybe ride this train for 14 miles to Peninsula, get off, and then continue biking either to Cleveland or Akron. But uh, your ticket will be good for when you get on or off. In other words, you cannot re-enter. If you decide to get back on the train, you will have to pay another $5. I highly recommend this if you have an extra day or you can fit it into a day. We have often seen people who use this itinerary, and from Massillon to downtown Akron is a shorter 30 miles. If they leave early in the morning, they can catch the train, take it Peninsula, and return to Akron. So this is a quite nice ride that is unique. It rides along the Cuyahoga River, along the towpaths trail in the Ohio to Erie Canal. Quite nice. What other resources are available out here? Well, on Facebook there are many. The Ohio to Erie Trail has an official Facebook page. Most of the stuff on our web page, you can find some information from that on our Facebook page. Primarily, we will publish things like trail alerts and closures, maybe some interesting things to see along the trail, often new businesses or new attractions that open up, or events that are happening. I would recommend that you go to the Ohio to Erie Trail YouTube channel. And this channel, we have some very good content. We have some videos that we have had professionally made. We also have webinar series every winter. It's a 4-month series of 4 webinars, and those are found up on the YouTube channel. And those primarily deal with how do you navigate this trail? What's the basics about this trail? And I'll talk about that in a coming slide. Uh, there's a really good enthusiast group on Facebook. It has a very long name, Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail / Ohio to Erie Trail Enthusiast Facebook group. And there is a lot of discussion here. I mean, an awful lot. So if you have questions, you want other people to say, if you say, hey, I'm a 65-year-old couple and we're going across this trail in 6 days, where should we stop? Or what hotels would you recommend? Or what memorable restaurant? This is the place to ask that. A lot of really, really good content. If you're a Rails to Trails Conservancy Trail Link user, you can use that and search the Ohio to Erie Trail, and that will bring up all of the partner trails. And you can read the reviews and look at maps and so forth that are on Trail Link. The Ohio to Erie Trail 326 Club is basically a recognition that we give cyclists, hikers, or whatever you may do, whether you're skateboarding across the state. And if you've done all 326 miles, we will recognize you. And it's kind of a cool thing, and you'll end up on our website and possibly highlighted. We are also seeing a growth in commercial tours on the trail. Particularly, I know Wilderness Voyagers does multiple of these tours a year. Women tours, we find doing tours across the trail. And Senior Cycling has done more area-specific tours. In other words, 4 or 5 days in a certain area. But I think you will find an Ohio to Erie Trail a commercial tour on several tour operators' websites. What's happening in this year in 2022? We're working on closing the gaps, and all of the following 3 construction updates are, of course, dependent on weather or other circumstances. We'll start at the south. A long anticipated gap is being closed from Cincinnati's Lincoln Airport to the beginning of the Little Miami Scenic Trail. This is going to eliminate 5 miles of road, and that road travels on both an industrial parkway and a a major route, US 50. And they anticipate that section of the trail to be done in the fall of 2022. So you'll pretty much be able to head out from Cincinnati and head up into the Little Miami Trail with a smaller piece of road. In the middle of the state, right below Centerburg, the Heart of Ohio Trail has 1.1 miles remaining to be finished, and below it, 2/10 of a mile of Licking County Trail. That will be done probably mid to late May. And what's important about that 1.3 miles will allow trail users to now use 9 miles on a nice shaded trail rather than an open country road. Anybody who travels on rural Ohio know that 9 miles of country road is basically open corn and soybean fields with little shade. So I know I welcome those 9 miles of trail. Finally, Holmes County is working on closing one of their gaps, their remaining gaps. And currently, the trail, if you're heading north, ends in Glenmont, Ohio. They are working on a section of trail, I believe it's 4 miles, and it will head north to where the former railroad crossed US, it might be State Route 520, and that's going to eliminate 4 miles of road. And I believe they anticipate that to be done in summer of 2022. For Holmes County, another small section of trail from that railroad cross into the town of Kilbuck, I believe, is on their radar for the next year or two. So those are 3, what I would say, great trail updates to share. Our winter webinar series, I mentioned that earlier, and you'll find these on our Facebook Hired Erie webpage. And they every year during the winter months, we offer a monthly webinar. The January was Hired Erie Trail 101. If you're new to the trail, I'd recommend that you go out and watch that. We do record these and upload them to YouTube, so you will find these winter webinars on YouTube. This coming week, for those who are listening to this presentation in person, is 326 miles. We did it. And this is a pretty diverse group of people, from a 10-year-old to more seasoned cyclists who have crossed the state. And they're going to share their stories, and we're going to talk about what it was for them to cross the Hired Erie Trail. In March, we'll talk about preparing for your first bicycle tour. We have a nice, we are happy to have 2 seasoned bicycle tourists share their tips from their years of bicycle touring on, what makes a good tour and how do you go about touring if you never have toured by bike. This will be a really good webinar. In April, we'll close out the 2022 Winter Webinar Series with MICROADVENTURES, and we started this presentation talking about MICROADVENTURES. So much of the presentation today dealt with navigating across the whole state, all 326 miles. We have chosen 3 individuals from 3 of what I would call trail towns on this trail. And they're going to talk about what you could do on 2 days, 3 days, or whatever in their area. So this will be a good webinar to listen to if you just want to have a casual weekend. Say, in Mount Vernon, Ohio, I believe is one, Massillon, Ohio, or Columbus, Ohio. All 3 of these locations offer an interesting and different experience on the trail. Again, all of these webinars will be recorded on our YouTube channel. So I want to thank you for attending this session, and I would like to thank those who are listening to the recorded session for attending the session. I invite you to visit the resources that I've covered today, and I hope that I meet you on the trail. Thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.